Hi everyone, it's Tracy Ellen from TAFE New South Wales here, and we are at the Carer Advantage webinar series, which is co-produced by TAFE New South Wales as well as Carers New South Wales. So welcome to Alexandra White, she's in the room as well. So let's moving on, let's just have a welcome to our meeting and acknowledgement to country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land and seas where we meet. We are statewide, so that is many, and I pay my respect to their elders past and present, and I extend that my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here today. Today our topic is all about young carers, so I wish to thank Sarah Abbey Qatar and Natalie Steidhart from Carers New South Wales and their interview John today for their time. They have put a lovely presentation together, so I'm going to hand over the presenter mode to Natalie. So just bear with me a moment and I'll get that sorted.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here. So I would also like to begin this morning by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today. For Sarah and myself, that is the Gorigal people of the Eora Nation. On behalf of Carers New South Wales, I would like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples on the call this morning. Thank you so much. So my name is Natalie. I am a Young Carer Project Officer at Carers New South Wales. I'm joined this morning by my colleague Sarah, also a Young Carer Project Officer, and we're going to spend about half an hour just, I guess, providing a bit of context to John, who is really the star of this morning's presentation. So we are the Young Carer team. We are part of the Young Carer program at Carers New South Wales. And these couple of slides are from an awareness training that we run as part of our role at Carers New South Wales. And we do this right across the state. It is, I guess, designed to bring lots of people onto the same page about young carers, what they're doing for the people they care for in their lives, some of the impacts that they might be facing in their caring role, but also some of the amazing strengths and the skills that we see every day in our role that they gain as part of being a young carer, that really sets them up for a lot of really fantastic opportunities as they move into education, secondary, into tertiary, if that's what they'd like to do, and then onwards into future careers as well. If after today's presentation you'd like to have a bit of a debrief with Sarah or myself about anything you've heard, this might be new content for you, which is awesome. It might also be something that you're very familiar with, which is also fantastic. But please do give us a call. Sarah and I are available 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and we are always up for a chat. So more than happy to speak with you if you'd like to look for more information or just have a bit of a debrief on anything we've spoken about. I will kick off with a little bit about our organisation, Carers New South Wales. So we are the peak non-government organisation for carers across the state, part of the National Carer Network and a member of Carers Australia as well. So our vision is an Australia that values and supports all carers. And as an organisation, we work with all carers regardless of their age, where they're living, who they care for, and the support needs relating to that individual as well. But why we are here is young carers. So at Carers New South Wales, we consider a young carer to be any child or young person, 25 years or under, who is helping to support a family member or friend living with a disability, mental illness, drug or alcohol dependency, chronic condition, terminal illness, or who is frail and has support needs relating to ageing. They can be caring for anyone. So we see young carers caring for parents, siblings, grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, best friends at school. The list can go on. To be considered a young carer by our definition, and certainly by many other services definitions as well, the young carer doesn't need to be the primary carer. So Sarah and I will often speak with families where a parent might be providing the bulk of the care, and then the young carer is supporting the family unit the best they can, however that might look like. They don't need to be receiving a payment or a benefit to be considered a young carer as well, so they don't need to be associated or registered with Centrelink. Young carers can be living with or away from the person they care for as well. So when we start looking at young carers who are entering into tertiary education, it might be that they've moved out of home, they're living on campus, they've moved cities, but they are certainly still providing a lot of emotional support and a lot of other assistance to their family and to the person they care for, despite living away from them. We also see multiple caring roles. So as we all know, we are living much longer at the moment in 2021. And so there could be grandparents with caring needs that young carers are supporting, as well as siblings, parents. Multi-generational caring roles are certainly very prevalent, and we see it a lot in our role at Carers New South Wales. We are going to kick off the rest of the content this morning by sharing this awesome video that was developed by Carers New South Wales back in 2017. We brought together a group of young carer leaders into our offices in North Sydney, and it was a day's workshop where they were provided with a little bit of leadership training, public speaking training, managing nerves, all those fun things that happen when you present. And for many of them as well, this was the first time that they had shared their caring story to camera, which is a whole other skill set entirely. So we really like playing this resource during presentations like this, because we feel like it gives a really lovely representation, I guess, of the diversity of the group of young carers that we see in our role at Carers New South Wales. So in this video, you'll hear from some young carers who have been caring for kind of as long as they can remember, ever since they were old enough to pick up a few extra responsibilities at home. And then you'll also hear from two sisters who became carers in a moment when their father was in an accident.
In Year 9, I remember writing an article for our local school newsletter about how time was never certain, because I had recently gone through a lot of negative things in my life.
So we're all about confidence, self-esteem. That's what we're going to give you today. So when you walk out those doors at 4 o'clock today, not only are you going to have had such a fun day, but you're going to have the confidence and the skills to be able to get up in front of a group and feel totally okay with it. You are not unique in your fear of public speaking. You guys all have an amazing story to share. And if you can get up and just be authentic about your struggles and what you've gone through, that's really important. Your story is going to help someone else.
Hi, I'm Kira, I'm 18 and I was 6 years old when my brother was born. I remember that day very clearly because I wanted a little sister. I also found out that my brother was born with Down syndrome.
Hi, my name is Devika. I'm 16 years old and I care for my older sister who's 23. She has epilepsy, anxiety and a rare intellectual speech disorder that is yet to be identified.
Hi, my name's Lauren. I'm 21 years old. I look after my twin brother who has 8p minus 4p plus syndrome. Part of the 8th chromosome is missing and part of the 4th chromosome has stuff added onto it.
I'm 17 years old and I'm a secondary carer for my dad who's a quadriplegic.
I take care of my mother who suffers from depression, anxiety and panic attacks. I've started caring for her when I was 5 years old.
I'm 22 and I care for my mum who has bipolar and cancer, and also my younger sister Rhiannon who has hypermobility connective tissue syndrome.
I'm 17 years old. I care for my 3 brothers, all who are on the autism spectrum.
I look after my younger brother Lockie who has autism, OCD, ADHD, who suffers from epileptic seizures and has Asperger's.
During my HSC, 5 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call saying that my father was in an accident with one of my horses while he was training. He is now an incomplete quadriplegic.
When he had his accident about 2 years ago, it kind of changed my perspective. Everything had to change. We had to move to a more wheelchair-friendly sort of home. The way I looked at the world kind of changed as well.
These last 2 years has probably been the toughest 2 years.
Being a carer isn't a job or a role, it's just a part of life.
Carers do amazing things and they do it out of love and family and friendship. There's over 900,000 carers in New South Wales and 100,000 of those are young carers under the age of 25. And it's really important for the community generally to think about where carers are in the community and support them.
It's been hard, don't get me wrong. It's had a huge impact on both my social life and my education.
Ever since I can remember, I was caring for my mother. But in high school, it got too much, and with the stress of schoolwork and caring, I had a nervous breakdown and was put into hospital for 5 weeks.
It's had a pretty massive impact on the whole family, with myself and both my parents suffering from mental illnesses. In saying that, I would not swap out their wonderful personalities and the opportunity to spend time with other young carers for the world.
The hardest part about being a young carer is people not understanding, but I'm so grateful for meeting people who do understand through programs like Young Carers New South Wales.
Through Carers New South Wales, that allowed me to develop my skills and become a stronger person. That allowed me to develop emotionally.
I finally realised I wasn't alone anymore, and that was the most wonderful thing in the world.
We hope you enjoyed that. They're a pretty special group of people, not saying anything new to anyone in the room, I'm sure. So part of the reason why Sarah and I run awareness training and do outreach and presentations like this in the community is because young carers are a particularly hidden population. You heard Elena mention a few statistics in that video. The current stats on young carers were released from the Australian Bureau of Statistics through a survey they conducted in 2018. And that survey told us that there are currently 83,700 young carers across New South Wales. There were a few caveats, I guess, to that data. So we do actually anticipate that the number is quite a bit higher. It required young carers to be able to recognise that they are a young carer and identify themselves. And there was, of course, also an age bracket on that group of people who were surveyed. So we anticipate that there is quite a bit more, but the official statistic is 83,700 young carers in the state. And of that number, almost 14% are in a primary caring role. So quite a bit more of that group are providing secondary care or tertiary care to the person they care for. They can be a hidden population for many reasons. So in that video, you heard from young carers who've kind of been caring from the age of about 5 or 6 when they were able to start picking up a few extra tasks. Those young people will often go through much of their schooling, much of their life, possibly, until someone has a conversation with them, not really necessarily realising that what they do is special and unique, and in turn means that they are able to access support. It's their norm, they're very used to it, they're just looking after a brother or a sister or mum or dad, and they don't really think much more of it. So we present to teachers often to try to encourage them to have conversations with young people that they think are in caring roles, to provide the young carer with some narrative around what they're doing and some language to explain that they are a carer. And that's awesome. That's really, really cool. There are other reasons why young carers might not identify. It could be fear of intervention, simply not wanting to be labelled a young carer, which is totally valid, and we completely understand that. There's a lot of conversations that we have with teachers around the language they use when engaging with young carers to try to alleviate that kind of pushback from young people who simply don't want the label of carer. I'm now going to invite Sarah to present a little bit more about who young carers are and what they're doing for the people they care for.
Thanks, Nat. Okay, so now we've heard the definition of who young carers are, and now I'm going to just talk a little bit about what they might be doing in their daily lives for the person that they care for. So they could be supporting someone with their personal care. So things like bathing, mobility assistance, nursing, things like that. They could be providing emotional support, so providing that companionship, the encouragement, just being there and having a chat and being available. Some of the household care duties, the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, and some other tasks, could be driving siblings or parents to appointments, advocating for the person that they care for, managing challenging behaviours, and other various tasks. So I guess the thing that we like to discuss or talk about at this on this slide is that for a young carer, you know, it being 16, 17 or in that age group, sometimes people will ask us, well, what's the difference between a teenager doing chores, you know, doing their own washing or making their bed compared to a young carer completing these tasks? And the main point we want to share here is that for a young carer, for some, if they don't complete the tasks themselves, then the task doesn't get done at all. So if they're not out doing the grocery shopping or coming home after school or TAFE or uni and cooking, then they might not get a home cooked meal. So some of the impacts for young carers could be that they might be feeling worried or stressed or anxious when they're away from the person that they care for. They could be feeling guilt. They could have experienced some social impacts as well. Difficulties forming friendships, or not being able to do things with their mates, hang out after school, which could put them at a higher risk of social isolation. And young carers could be at risk of some physical health, physical injuries that could be due to mobility assistance or having interrupted sleep at night, and just experiencing some long-term stress and exhaustion. So these impacts, not every young carer will experience this. These are just some of the impacts that we do hear from young carers that they share with us, and it could be they could be experiencing many of these impacts, and or might not be experiencing them at all. But we also see amazing skills and strengths that our young carers that we chat with on a daily basis that they display. So things like patience and empathy, resilience, being organised, having great time management skills, and being really confident in public speaking. And they just also can develop amazing skills that are relevant to their career choice and their professional field. So we chat with a lot of young carers who choose to go into certain careers like social work, psychology, support work, peer work, allied health profession. And they can also develop some really awesome advocacy skills. So I guess in terms of the skills and strengths for young carers, I mean, we all know it can be a little bit hard to identify our own strengths, whether you're a young carer or not. But I guess in particular with young carers, it's really good and important for us and for the people around young carers to have these conversations and to help young carers, I guess, be aware that what they're doing has meaning, and there are skills, unique skills that they might have that others around them or their peers might not have. So I think it's really good for us to, support young carers in identifying their own skills and strengths to support them in with their education and their career paths. So looking beyond the behaviour, so you might know a young carer, you might be supporting someone, or you might know young people who you might not have any idea that they are young carers. So I guess these are some of the behaviours that young carers could display. Not always, but they might. So a young carer could always, be feeling tired. They might be up all night taking care of a sick or unwell family member. They might be finding it really difficult to concentrate, missing days at school or TAFE or work. And they could be just demonstrating some antisocial behaviours. So you could see a shift in their behaviour. They might not know how to assert their own needs. They might have that extra responsibility of completing the household tasks, like I mentioned earlier. They might not want to have friends over. And that could be, because of the person that they're caring for could be unwell. Sometimes young carers share with us that they have feelings of embarrassment, or they don't really know how to explain to people around them that they are in that caring role. So I guess it's easier at times to not have your friends over. And sometimes a young carer might need to take on an after school or second job just to help the family out financially. So these are some of the things that, some of the behaviours that young carers might display, not always, but it could be, if you are noticing any of these behaviours in someone a friend, a student, a family member, it might be it might be good to have a chat and see how they're going. So supporting young carers. So I'm going to hand over to Nat to chat about, how we can support young carers in the community. But I guess it's really important for us to remember that, even if we are speaking to young carers and they're not in crisis or things are going okay and their family member or their friends doing okay, it can be still important for them to link in with a service or just to read some information and to acknowledge their caring role, because it can be, we want to make sure young carers are supported throughout their whole journey, and not just when they're in crisis. And we all know from experience, when we reach that crisis point, it can be a little difficult to navigate the system when you're there. So whether the young carer is doing well or not, I think it's still important to have that conversation and to ensure that young carers are supported. Thanks, Nat.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So at this point, we're going to talk a little bit about how young carers can access support. Whether you're on the call today and you're a young carer looking for a bit of extra assistance in whatever you're doing at the moment, or like as Sarah was mentioning, if you know a young carer, if you know a young person who hasn't yet identified that they're a young carer, we're just going to spend a bit of time now talking about how to access different services and supports depending on where you're at in your life. So first off, we just wanted to acknowledge different points of transition in any young person's life, but for young carers especially, they might find different transition points just that little bit extra challenging as they move either into high school, out of high school, into TAFE, into uni, into work, whatever the case might be. This quote on the screen at the moment came from the Young Carer Research Project that Carers New South Wales was undertaking last year. And the point of this quote was that a few young carers in that research report spoke about not accessing a lot of information while they were at school. And that lack of information that existed for them as they left Year 12 and transitioned into additional education or employment. And I guess there are, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different challenges that young people face at those points, but I think there is still opportunity for future research and future consideration of how to better support young carers at those points of transition, and how a young carer and how their caring role might impact any future work or education that they choose to undertake if they're thinking about the person they care for and how to juggle everything that they're going through at that point in time. One really good service that we will mention at this point that can assist young carers across those different points of transition, namely kind of high school into other other education or employment from there, is the Young Carer Bursary Program. So you can hop onto that website that's on the screen at the moment, youngcarersnetwork.com.au, and you can read more about the bursary if you're eligible. It is financial assistance for young carers to stay in education is its main purpose. But yeah, it exists to kind of provide that additional financial assistance to young carers to help them through education and then out into the big wide world. So the applications for the bursary will usually open around July of every year, and it's designed to support young carers who are planning to study in the following calendar year. So for support in 2022, you can apply for the Young Carer Bursary Program in July of this year. And there's a heap more information on the website about that process and what that looks like and what you will receive if you're successful. But you're also welcome to give Sarah or myself a call to chat more about that if you're interested. Another really fantastic program and service to mention at this point is the Carer Gateway. So you might have already heard about the Gateway, which is fantastic. You might not have, and that's okay. It's relatively new. It went live April last year. So we're coming up to 1 year with the Gateway live, and it's really, really wonderful for carers to tap into if they haven't already. So there is an assessment and planning process that you will undertake as a carer, and from there's a wealth of support that you might be eligible for that you can speak with the Carer Gateway intake officer about. So you can see some things listed on your screen there. The best thing that we recommend you to do is to call the 1-800 number and see what you're eligible for as a carer. And the idea is that any carer, doesn't matter who they're caring for, can access support just for themselves through Carer Gateway, irrespective of any supports that are already in place for the person they care for. So this is for the carer, And it's really, really wonderful what carers can access through it. So there's a bit more information on the Carer Gateway website. That's the website on your screen, carergateway.gov.au. And through the website, you can also request a callback. So we know very well that carers are super busy. If there is a time that suits you in any given week, you can hop onto the website and request a callback and specify what kind of rough time of day or time of week you'd like to receive that call. Might be a bit easier than calling the 1-800 number yourself. I will mention as well that Carers New South Wales is the service provider for kind of mid New South Wales and north, but you can call that 1-800 number and speak with your registered provider. Doesn't matter where you are across Australia. That is the best number for you to have on hand if you ever are looking for support. Before we introduce John, I'll just wrap up with a little bit about our program and why we exist, what we do. So we have been around for a very long time, and you may have already reached out to us at some point in the last 20 or so years that we've existed, but certainly we are currently still the central point of contact for young carers across New South Wales, and we were developed to make a positive difference to the lives of young carers and their families. So we do this through a registration process. Young carers who are 25 years and under can register to be just kept in the loop with our program. We are primarily an information and referral service. So we are based in Sydney, but we provide information and referral to young carers right across New South Wales. And young carers are connected with us if they choose to register right up until they turn 26, and they can reach out to us at any point in that time if they're looking for anything specifically. There are some really fantastic opportunities through Carers New South Wales as an organisation that we are able to connect young carers in with. So one of those being the Carer Representative Program for any carer over the age of 18 who really wants to stay connected in that policy space. There's a lot of opportunities for them through that program where they can participate in discussion, meet representatives from government and parliament, have media opportunities offered to them where they can be interviewed for television or radio, all in the really good work of trying to raise awareness of carers and advocate systemically for carers to be heard in different models of support. We have a monthly e-newsletter, which anyone can subscribe to if you'd like to be kept in the loop about what's happening in the sector, what's happening with our program, and different cool opportunities that young carers can tap into. We have our website there that you're welcome to visit and access for resources and information about young carers. And then we have our social media presence as well. So we have our YC Facebook page, which you're welcome to give us a follow. That's our handle there. There are also the Carers New South Wales Facebook page for the organisation and Instagram accounts as well, which we would really encourage you to like and follow along with. So at this point, we're going to wrap up our part of the presentation, but we are going to play you an interview that we did with John. John is a wonderful young carer that we have worked with for many, many years, and he'll introduce himself in a little bit. But if you have any questions throughout listening to this interview or after anything Sarah and I have shared today, you're welcome to pop them in the chat. Any questions specifically for John or any feedback for John, we're sure he'd love to hear it. So please do reach out to Sarah or myself and we can pass that on to him. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this interview. And then once he's finished sharing a bit about his experience, I'll jump back on just with a little wrap up before handing back to Tracy. So here is John. We hope you enjoy hearing about his experience as a young carer.
I care for my mother who has mental health issues. She has depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. And I'm also a peer worker, supporting carers of someone with a mental illness. And I do that 9 days a fortnight. Now, you may have heard of peer work or peer workers working in mental health facilities. So my peer work is similar to those, but except I've got a lived experience as being a carer. Oh, a day in my life, well, as a working carer, what a good question. So my day often starts early in the morning. So after I've gotten myself ready for work, I'll often make sure that mum's got her medication that she needs for the day. So I'll often make sure that she's had them before I leave for work. And I'll do some small household duties that need to be done. So this can include washing up any dishes that may need to be done, putting a load of washing on, or hanging out a load of washing if I did one the night before. And if I've got time, maybe doing a little bit of vacuuming. And then obviously I'm at work for 8 or 9 hours in the day. And then when I come back, I've got to do some more household duties. So cooking a meal for dinner, feeding our family dog, washing up, some of those dishes that were done, doing a bit more cleaning around the house, because cleaning is one of those things that is always something to do. So it's always good to be busy in that regard. So there's a lot to do. And then also checking in on mum in relation to how she's gone during the day. And, if she's had a panic attack during the day, how did she go? How's she feeling now? Does she need to talk about anything that may have come up? But also through me being a working carer, there are times when I'll get a phone call from mum and she just wants to have a chat. Or I might need to leave work early to go and be there for mum if she needs me, or be there for mum when she has appointments that she wants me to attend with her, and be that, emotional support that she needs. So my life as a working carer is definitely busy, but it's something that I enjoy doing. I've always liked being a busy person. There's always something new that comes up. Mum may be well one day, but then may be unwell for 2 or 3 days after that. So, the caring role does change at a split of a second. So, what I think mum's doing well in the morning, she may not be doing well when I get home. So no 2 days are ever the same. I've had a positive experience through my primary, secondary, and also TAFE schooling. So throughout my primary and secondary schooling, I had very supportive and understanding teachers when it came to me needing time, extra time for homework or assignments. They were very understanding and accommodating in that regards. The school counsellor was someone that I found was easy to be spoken to. I accessed that through both primary and secondary schooling. It was a good way for me to talk about what is going on. So I've done my Certificate 3 and Certificate 4 in community services, and now completing my diploma in mental health. So my Certificate 3 was done as a TVET course. So I did that on a Wednesday for 4 hours through years 11 and 12. It was a good taste tester, if you will, of what the community services sector is like, and finding if it was something that I wanted to do. Through my Certificate 4 in community services, that happened for 3 days for over 1 year. My teachers were understanding when I needed an extra maybe 2 or 3 days to submit an assignment, or I might have been absent, or I might have been late or needed to leave early from class to attend to my caring duties. And I also felt welcomed through my classmates as well. I was never once felt excluded or left out because I'm a carer. Not that there's anything to be ashamed or embarrassed about for being a young carer. And now, completing my diploma in mental health, I'm doing that online, which is probably a bit more accommodating if I think about it now, because I'm able to still keep an eye on mum and also complete the class at home, which is something that I've needed to do a fair few times. which is, something really positive that TAFE has to offer and something good for carers to do. So the way that being a young carer has led me into the career that I've chosen as a peer worker, supporting other carers of someone with a mental illness. Well, it's given me life experience, which you can't get that from a textbook. You can't get that from an online class or attending any educational class. So it's helped me build rapport with the other carers that I support because they're able to relate to someone that has an understanding of what it's like to be a carer, the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis, knowing how unpredictable our lives can be, how it can change from the morning to the afternoon. And it's, being a young carer has provided me with connections as well. Throughout me supporting mum, I've met, other workers in the community services field, which has helped me form connections that I need for work. It's also, my young care experience has given me organisational time management skills, which is, vital when you're working and you've got deadlines to meet. The health field at the moment, at least through my experience and understanding, they're wanting more people with lived experience to come and join to join their workforce. So, if you ever applying for a job, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed, and be honest with your employer is obviously aware that they're employing someone with a lived experience. Be honest and open about your caring experience and how that may influence your work, because you may be surprised how understanding they are in accommodating that. Because I know through my working experience, there's been times when I've needed to leave work early or to leave work home early to attend to mum, or to answer my phone just so mum can have someone to debrief to about what's going on. So just be honest with your supervisors that you may have about your caring role, and you'll be surprised how welcoming they will be. Originally, I had two career aspirations that I wanted to do. One of them was to become an accountant, and the other one was to work in the IT field. So I made those two realizations probably when I was in primary and early secondary school. And then I later thought about what I really wanted to do. And after having a few conversations with some of mum's support workers about getting a bit of information about, the career path that I want to go down to, they really helped me choose the career path that I wanted to do by working in mental health. Because I mentioned, you've got a lot of skills that you'd be able to do. And they've mentioned about the lived experience workforce that a lot of the community services is going into. So I probably made the big realization, the big change of mind, probably year 10. And then that's when I had a conversation with our careers advisor about what courses I could do. And then he led me to a contact for TAFE to do my Certificate 3. If I didn't enjoy it, I could go on to something else after high school. So I probably would be about year 10 when I made the realisation. When applying for my Certificate 4 in Community Services, I did have some support from my careers advisor in relation to completing the application form. And being there while I completed it and being a bit of a advocate, if you will, if I did have any questions, about it. And I found that extremely helpful to do. And then I guess also completing the Certificate 3 in Community Services did help a fair bit in applying to do the Certificate 4, because I knew a little bit about what I was in for in the Certificate 4 Community Services. So I did have some assistance in applying for the certificates, and then, yeah. Yeah, well, you're definitely testing my memory now. So I did have some assistance from TAFE in relation to preparing my resume and applying for this job. Now, I can't remember the TAFE lady's role, but I know she was someone that did specialise in resume writing and applying for jobs, and I had a bit of one-on-one support with her about knowing, okay, what to put in my resume, what to put in the cover letter, and answer the selection criteria questions relating back to my caring role. But yes, I did have assistance in applying for it, which was really good because this was really my first formal job out of school. And so it's good and well to have the certificates behind me or completing as I did, but how to answer those selection criteria questions. But, me with young care experience was something that I did find difficult, but through, having this TAFE teacher that helped me through it, did it on one-on-one. I think it took us about 2 hours to do. It was something that I'm glad that I did have some help with, because if I didn't have her assistance, I probably wouldn't have this job today. A few lessons that I've learned while juggling work and caring is that it's not easy at times to do both. Sometimes you got to think, okay, crap, I've got this going on at home, and then I've got to go to work and be happy and, be professional and be calm-minded. Speaking with my supervisor and letting her know beforehand that, I've had a bit of a difficult time at home before coming to work. I may not be working 100%. And through my, I did have to learn that bit the hard way. My supervisor did come to me and say, John, just notice you're not going 100%, you can always let me know beforehand, and I'll keep that in mind. So it's good to know that I've got a good supportive network in my supervisor, and, and knowing that I can leave work early if needed, and also accessing carer counselling is something that's really helped me juggle work and my caring role as well. So I've accessed that through Carer Gateway, and it's something that I would recommend to other young carers to do. And it's something that will, greatly benefit you while juggling work and your caring role at the same time, because it's not easy to do. So some of my tips would be undertaking a course that you can do, and there's a few different ways to do it, in knowing safe ways in telling your story to your clients that you may interact with, because you also do have to be mindful that you are in a professional role and there are professional boundaries that need to be addressed and adhered to, but and also keeping with privacy around the person that you're caring for. So some of the ways that I do this is I use third person. So I say I care for someone with a mental illness, and I always make it clear that my caring experience is going to be different, but there will be some similarities to what the person that I'm supporting has gone through. And often that's all that the carers want to hear. and just be honest with your supervisor and your fellow colleagues that you're working with, that you may not be 100% for work, or might be times when you need to leave early or start late, and often you'll find that they're fairly flexible in relation to your caring role. The best part about being a young carer, well, if I have to pick one thing, it's created who I am as a person. It's created me to be a friendly, calm, relatable, approachable person that that you need to have, if you want to work, if you want to work, to have all those things. But just that's who I am, in general. So it's created, life skills that take you from being a young person right up to being an elderly person. So it's given me skills, in particular life skills, that maybe other people that throughout growing up that were about similar in age may not necessarily have, which is okay as well. We all learn at different times and we all have different experiences. So yeah, in summary, teaching me life skills that will help me throughout life.
And that is the end this morning of our session on young carers. Thank you to John, by the way, if you're listening. We really, really, really appreciate you taking up your time, or giving up your time the other day to share your experience with us, and for creating that video with us. So thank you. And to thank you to everyone on the call this morning for listening. We hope you learnt a little bit. If you would like to reach out to Sarah or myself, that's our contact number there, 92804744. As I said before, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you're welcome to give us a buzz and have a chat. If you're looking for information about young carers, or if you're wanting to register a young carer, please do reach out. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Oh, thank you, Natalie and Sarah, for a great presentation. It really does highlight lots of different things that we need to think about with young carers. I'm a mum of a child with a disability, and he has a younger sibling who I can see fits some of that criteria. So thank you for that, and it reminds me that I probably need to have that conversation. The other part of the video, thank you to John. What a great advocate and a person to share his experience. And I guess it also alludes to the fact that there is support, lots of support out there for young carers, and for them to feel comfortable, hopefully approaching that conversation with lots of different people in the community, including people like myself who actually work with TAFE and providing services to carers and helping them with, upskilling and engaging in, employment as well as education, all those sorts of things. So hopefully all our guests are aware of our capacity to do that. But if not, please, be mindful of that you can reach out to myself or to Carers New South Wales directly, or to the young carer team to, start that journey, I guess, isn't it? It's about getting there and acknowledging and starting that journey either at the gateway end or maybe at the TAFE way end. It just depends on where you're at, but definitely encourage you to do so. So really appreciate your time today, and I hope everyone's gotten something out of it. You will get a follow-up email if you've attended, or even if you've just registered and you couldn't be here today. So you'll be able to access the video recording that we're doing today, as well as any other additional information, so the presentations and documentation that the young carer team presented, as well as anything else that I've got. We also seek your feedback, so in that email you will be sent a link to a Microsoft form to fill in to give us a bit of an insight about the young carer team's participation, as well as just the general organisation of this meeting, the Carer Advantage webinar series. So would love to hear from you. And let everyone know about us, about what we're doing, and maybe how they can access the support too if they haven't already. So thanks again. Alex, have you got anything you would like to add?
No. Well, one thing that just came to mind. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks so much, guys, for amazing, comprehensive presentation, and with those stories from young carers. They're just I had the tears coming anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, one thing I thought of was just in particular to peer support, Tracy, was your course. So I guess I wondered, what it, whether or not it is more directed towards mental health, or how you're structuring that peer support course.
Yeah, good question. So we've just got an expression of interest out to carers who might like to participate in a peer support and community engagement course. It's a carer specific skill set that we've put together at TAFE New South Wales. So it's obviously prioritised for carers with lived experience who would like to maybe look at the opportunity of working in the sector, and similar to what John is probably doing out there. So there is a little bit of community service package type quals in there. The information, if anyone would like to get that, if they haven't already gotten that through us, it's probably best to send me an email and I can actually send them a direct flyer information.
Thank you.
So there is a community service section, about 2 or 3 units, and then there's also a project management / event management sort of part to it as well, which will be filtered through a carer's lens. So I'm actually teaching on that, which will be really exciting. And we hope to get started in the beginning of March. In the initial flyer which went out, just so in case people have seen it, we were pitching it being a Monday class during the day. Having said that, we have had some inquiries from carers, which is excellent, asking about some more flexibility in delivery. So we've had that conversation with head teachers, and they're quite keen to explore options of doing evening classes if that's what people would like. So if you haven't expressed interest yet, but you would like to, in our form where you can do that, you can actually tell us what time of day is the time that you think you're right for study mode, so that we can take that into account and we can look at numbers and work out, which way we will go in delivering that. So we really want to take that on board, that, carers are, as you say, John's a busy man, he's looking after his mum, he's trying to hold down a job, and, that multitasking is a really wonderful attribute, but it can create havoc, kind of, in the mainstream world of education and work. So, we're trying to be as flexible as we can when delivering.
And just one other thing that came to mind is I guess the individual support that that John mentioned. And look, I know that it's a great start for young carers to come through to Natalie and Sarah. They can kind of guide them into those various pathways of if it is career advisor, or whether or not you've talked to, and I guess that's probably more in your space, but also if it's individual support for resume writing, that is something that I'm concurrently offer through the Care to Work program. And I don't know if, Tracy, you have any other tips of how people can access those kinds of supports, individual support through TAFE. I'm just not, because as he mentioned, he's not sure who, what the role
exactly.
was.
And it is a tricky one. So as you say, thankfully, Carers New South Wales have that package to tailor make that individual. We're hoping that we can support to a certain extent in that space as well. So if a carer comes to me and says, hey, I've got this life experience and I'd like to be able to maybe now venture into some kind of having a qualification that will then be that bridge to maybe gaining some employment, we would have that conversation around, okay, well, what sort of lived experience does that pair up to? The biggest question for us is making sure that when we are looking at courses, that they suit the carer's ability to do that, to be able to follow through and engage with it either online, as John was saying, or if it's that they need to go into a campus, all those sorts of things. And of course that it's got an interest base to them, or that they sort of know what they're sort of walking into. We can give them an understanding, as you say, what the content might look like.
That career coaching kind of.
Exactly. But that SURF does have a generic, career counselling services as well, so that might be an entry point for some. If for some reason you've already got prior qualification, that's where that recognition of prior learning comes in. We can sort of analyse that as well and have a little look at, okay, is there anything that's directly mappable to current qualifications, that we can do a direct transfer, you know, what we would call a credit transfer. If it's not as clear as that, we do have to do a bit of investigative work. You know, we have to have a little look and see, are they meeting, you know, the requirements of that course unit. And often what I will be doing is often liaise then back in with the head teacher of that particular course to help get more insight around, is it best to RPL? Are we best to pull it apart and get all the evidence together, which might be prior lived experience statements or voluntary work you've done or any other qualification part things you've done, or is it best to do the course again? And I'm sure people have heard that, you know, being on that bit of a mouse treadmill of, you know, having to do courses again. And sometimes it's relevant to do that because sometimes courses totally change, you know, even within a short period of time. Other times it's, you know, they've been around for a long time and it might be just a bit of a top-up knowledge that they need. But yeah, every individual situation is probably the way we would go, you know, one-on-one with each person and have a chat about what's going on and see if we can get the right things happening at the right time for them. But hopefully that sort of gives you a bit more understanding. Is there any other sort of questions in that way, either Natalie or Sarah, that you're thinking of in that spectrum of
That's a good
education?
Segue to next webinar too, Tracy.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, lots of great topics coming. And we also love to hear from you about what you think should be a topic of discussion. So that could be something you could add into your feedback as well for us, guys, if anyone's got any good ideas moving forward. But yeah, we have got a few exciting things lined up, haven't we, Alex, for the next ones? So yeah, excellent.
Oh, it was fabulous to hear from the YC team. Thank you guys for today.
Yeah, no, really
Thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much for having us. It was really, really cool. So thank you.
Well, I think we might say goodbye to everyone. And
right on 11. You guys are
on 11. Yeah, we're on it.
great skills.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks everyone.